One of the things you'll find out from just about any Sprinter owner is just how bad the fuel mileage can be on a big van like this, especially as you start to add weight, and the factory tank is only 24 gallons. And that's 24 gallons of diesel fuel, one of the most expensive types of fuel here in the US, especially where I live on the East Coast. And only being able to hold 24 gallons of that is very limiting. One, if you find it at a good price, you can only stock up to 24 gallons, and then you have to fill up quite frequently because of the not great gas mileage, right? And because of those limitations, the range you end up with is not amazing. I was getting about 350 miles to a tank before the van was like, hey, you should fill up. And I wanted the ability to be able to be flexible with my travel and stop where fuel was cheap or where I wanted to stop and things of that nature. So, that being said, the natural upgrade is the S&B 47-gallon tank. Let's get that installed over at Main Line Overland right now. And as with most of the installs on this vehicle, it starts by removing some of the factory parts. In this case, we've got to remove the fuel door and then the fuel filler neck as well, and then start pulling stuff apart underneath. Pat is starting by disconnecting some of the fuel lines to the tank itself. What was warm?
The exhaust.
The exhaust is warm? I just drove here a half an hour.
Well, usually these are sitting in overnight. Paying attention.
Hey Pat, that thing about 6 inches from your face is really hot.
Yeah. Go for a regen on the way over.
I hope not. Jesus. Look at this cute little muffler, by the way. Do you think this is doing enough? It's about the size of an iPhone.
It does quiet it down a little bit.
A little bit, you think?
Because it's an S.
Is that a Webasto freaking factory? It is. It says Webasto right there. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Making them for the factory.
What are we draining now? What line are we draining?
You have your pickup for your factory heater here. That's
okay.
All. That basically just draws it out. And your return and your supply. So
this is to the engine and back.
Yes.
So clear out the fuel lines and then we'll pull this big bad boy out.
yes.
All right. In order to pull the tank down, you got to pull the filler neck with it. There's a piece of foam on the bottom. You just pop that out. It's there to prevent crap from getting up inside the frame. And as you can see, there's a grounding strap as well. My van actually has the large filler neck option on it, and what that allows me to do is use the big pumps for the big rigs, the trucks, all that sort of stuff at truck stops all over the US. It's really, really nice to have that flexibility, especially with the larger tank that's going in here. And it's kind of funny because Pat's showing me here how long the tank's actually going to be, the aftermarket tank. I mean, it'll go all the way back there, and it makes you wonder why Mercedes doesn't utilize that space and put a much larger tank on these things. This is that classic shot comparing the factory tank on top, which is 24 gallons, to the new S&B tank, which is 47 gallons, which is almost double the capacity, and it's freaking absolutely wonderful. Look how big that is. What's really nice about the S&B tank is it is a drop-in factory replacement. So you pop the sending unit out, of the factory tank and then drop it into the S&B tank. And from there, it's just a matter of replacing the lock ring and then reinstalling the factory lines. It's really that simple. It's basically just a replacement of the tank. You don't have to deal with changing any lines. You don't have to deal with any extra BS. It's pretty straightforward, which is rad. And of course, the large filler neck that is on my factory tank now needs to be swapped over, including the check valve, and reinstalled on the S&B tank. And of course, the tank has to go back on the van, right? So Pat has to crawl under there and kind of arrange everything to make sure it fits properly, and then we can attach it. And for those of you with a big brain, you'll realize there's no fuel in the new tank. So we have to take the fuel that was in the factory tank and use a transfer pump and put it in the new tank. So as you can see, that was not that bad of an install. We got it in there, no big deal. Now, one of the most frequent questions I get is like, did that change your fuel mileage? Well, no, it doesn't really change the mileage because you have only increased the capacity. It allows you to go farther. It increases your range, not the actual fuel mileage. Now, I will say this. I was trusting what the van said in the dash for the entire time prior to my last trip to Colorado, right? And I've now driven it thousands of miles across the country with that big tank. And I trusted this thing, and it was telling me it was getting 10 miles to the gallon average, 11, 12, 13, somewhere in that neighborhood, right? Well, then I decided on my trip out to Colorado to do the math. Let's do the actual math of fuel in and mileage and all those sorts of things, right? So what did I find out? That bad boy right there was getting 16.5 miles to the gallon with a whole bunch of weight. I had like 1,200 pounds of metal in the back as my sleeping platform while I drove across the country. I had a bunch of weight in there. I had a bunch of gear. 16.5 miles to the gallon in the best parts. Now, it wasn't that way consistently. Once I got up in altitude, that certainly dropped off quite a bit because those are very, very sluggish at higher altitudes. But 16.5 miles to the gallon across Pennsylvania? Hell yeah. And I know your next question is, how much does it cost to fill that? And on the most expensive side, I was able to get about 41 and a half gallons of fuel in the tank. That cost, the most expensive fuel tank fill up for me was about $200 to fill a 47-gallon tank. I don't remember what the fuel cost was, but at some point, I also got a tank of fuel that was $3.69 a gallon as opposed to what it is here on the East Coast between $4.75 and $5 a gallon. I found that in Missouri. So there are opportunities to get affordable fuel in the van and go farther, go out there, be longer, idle the van when you need to, not worry about fuel, and more importantly, when the heater and things like that are drawing off the diesel tank later on, we got plenty of fuel. We're not worried about it. We're not stressing. What we have gained, more importantly than anything else here, is freedom. And that's what this is all about. If you want to see more about the van build, check us out. Subscribe over on YouTube, Instagram, whatever. Come find me and we'll talk. See you guys soon. Thanks for watching.